Hi, welcome to another episode of Hot Takes. A few months ago, there was a push by a Conservative MP to try and get the practice of marrying first cousins made illegal. This was because of consanguinity. The closeness of the relationship leads to genetic damage in children. It is very serious, and it is something that can be avoided quite simply by not committing incest, basically, to put it bluntly. But Labour were very much opposed to it because they knew who the biggest, I use the word culprits are, but the biggest cohort that practice incest like this are the Muslim community. And this has been highlighted in Bradford. It's been revealed that 46%, so nearly half the women in the Pakistani community in Bradford, are married to their cousins. In fact, the majority of congenital birth defects in this country come from that community. They represent about 8% of the population, but the massive majority of birth defects. Now, Starmer has now today come out and said he will not ban marrying first cousins, despite the awfulness of what happens to the children and the cost to the country for having to look after them. The consequences for the children are horrific. There's all sorts of problems with inbreeding like this. Incestuous relationships are bad for very many reasons. And you have to wonder why a community like this insists on doing it. Why do they like incest so much? What is it about shagging cousins? Well, I think it's power and money. They want to keep money in the family. And that's all very fine and pleasant until you breed yourself sterile. This happens. Or even worse, mad. You breed yourself completely lunatic. Just look at the Habsburgs of the Middle Ages. They all had these chins that went out like bananas. And then they all went a bit loopy and they were mentally retarded. And so you end up with this whole cohort of physically disabled, mentally retarded and sterile people. And then they wonder, why is everything wrong with us? Well, stop fucking your cousin, quite literally. But Bradford is the worst in Britain for it, but there are others. Richard Holden, he was the Conservative MP who wanted to ban it, says, look, they turned it down before, but we can see the damage. I have a very strange understanding of what's going on with Labour. They don't want to alienate the Muslim community, but surely standing up and protecting the Muslim community from this kind of genetic damage would be beneficial to them. He says it's a very strange approach to take. And he's saying that it's very odd that modern day MPs with an understanding of genetics would defend this, defending incest. Why is Keir Starmer defending incest? Nobody really knows. But he has said, Starmer, that he's going to stand against it and he's going to allow incest to continue. Every doctor, paediatrician, they will tell you how damaging and bad this is, but Starmer knows best. Hey ho. And the real thing, of course, is what's called the multiplier, the gearing. Because you'll have a cousin marries a cousin here, they have offspring, then their offspring will marry cousins, and then their offspring will marry cousins. And so you get a reduced variability in the gene line, which means gene processing errors get multiplied, and you end up, as I say, with vegetables. And that's seen time and time again. The very fact that gnomes exist, the gnomes of Zurich, as they're known, we often refer that to the bankers of Switzerland, but they were actually gnomes because when the winter came in the old days, when the winter came and all these valleys that were snowed in and blocked off, you'd shag whatever was going, and it was usually family members, and thus genetic damage set in. And that exactly is happening now. And we can see it now. And it can be monitored now. It is quantized. You can count. And one only has to take a drop of blood and examine the DNA to see the genetic damage in certain communities. Now, Muslims aren't the only one that practice it, of course. There are others. But here's the really weird thing. predominantly in this country, and this isn't an opinion, this isn't criticism, it's a factual explanation, that in every case where there is large-scale incestuous relationships in families, it is always in the immigrant community. British people tend not to do it. It's very, very unusual, not just in British, but in fact in European families, for this to happen. Europe has kind of learnt the lesson and shunned it. But, like I say, in certain immigrant communities, it still goes on. African, for example, as well. Especially sub-Saharan African. It's very, very common. It's very weird. Different cultures. It is cultural. I get it. It's cultural. But from a scientific and humane point of view, I think it's very wrong. And I think it's absolutely atrocious that the Prime Minister of this country is encouraging incest and is pushing for more genetically damaged children. What a monster this man truly is. Let me know your thoughts. Thanks very much.